Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia here on LaSalle TV. Although I am not Andrew Albert. Andrew Albert is currently up in Brooklyn, New York at the house that Jay-Z built, the Barclays Center, currently covering the A10 tournament. So I am Tyler Harper. I will be taking his place. But as the saying goes, the show must go on, and we've got a great panel today. To my left, we have Mark Wilson, Steve Graham, and Tom McIntyre. We got the roommates finally on together, so this should be some interesting sports banter between all of us. And today's show is especially interesting because we're talking about three different teams that are in three different modes of their year-round schedule. We'll first start with the team that is currently in off-season mode, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles, who, of course, since this is our first show coming back from spring break, we have a lot to talk about with the Eagles, as just about the day after we did our last taping, the Eagles made a re-signing. As you'll see the graphic, Jeremy Maclin has decided to re-sign with the Philadelphia Eagles with a one-year contract, $6 million guaranteed. $6 million, $3.5 million guaranteed, excuse me. Of course, sat out all of last season due to a torn ACL, but in 2012, he had 69 catches, 857 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Guys, what does Jeremy Maclin bring to this roster coming back?
He brings another target for Michael Vick. Going into last season before he was hurt that ACL.
You mean Nick Foles?
Nick Foles now. Well, last year was for Michael Vick. He's another weapon for the Eagles offense. Last year going into the season, he was the number 2 receiver behind Deshaun Jackson. And now they also have Cooper. So he adds a third weapon to that Eagles wide receiver core in addition to LaShawn McCoy in the backfield. So he's added more depth, and he's added just another wrinkle in their offense that's just going to, just make the Eagles that much better. It's another great target for Nick Foles to hit.
Steve?
Yeah, I agree with Mark absolutely in that. He complements this offense. Not only is he a deep threat with his speed, but his route running abilities allow him to get across the field in the slants, and he's a sure first down to Nick Foles. Now, I like the one-year contract that they're doing because, he has to prove himself. A torn ACL is a significant injury and can affect your speed. So whether or not Chip Kelly will just throw him in at slot receiver or have him run deep will be interesting, and I think the workouts before the season starts are going to determine that.
Yeah, the training camp, his injury in training camp before last season was really tough to see. He was really just the main guy. Before, really, Deshaun Jackson wasn't doing too well until last season, and he was like the main guy, main target, and it was tough to see him go down. So I think if he's healthy and he brings back what he did before, I think he can be really good.
We brought up, of course, his injury, the torn ACL, which had a lot of people curious as to what was going to happen because he was in a contract year. People were wondering whether or not the franchise tag was going to be put on him, but they came to a one-year deal. Mark, with him coming back off that injury, how much does that scare you? Does it worry you, or do you think he'll be okay?
It doesn't worry me too much. He had all last year to recover from it and go through physical therapy, get back to playing shape. I think the one-year deal is the smart decision because, some of these injuries, they might be hit or miss. Some players might recover to 100%. Other players might not return to that same ability. So one-year deal, it's a smart move. Give him the money to make him want to stay, make him want to play. If he does really well this year, give him more. If he does not, you have no obligations from here on out.
How about you, Steve?
I'd say let him prove himself too. In the press conference after they signed him, he said he's lifting now, he's running around, but when it comes to contact, that's a whole different ballpark. But if he can bring his speed back and get down the field, then I'm sure they'll re-sign him again.
I'm cautious. I'm speaking from experience. I've torn my ACL, sadly
Yes,
to
you
say, community basketball.
The big leagues.
Yeah, big leagues. But I'm cautious. I think because in my experience, you really are scared you're going to tear it again. And I think that's a big thing. Like, he may be healthy, may be fine, but it's psychological. Like, am I going to get hurt again? Should I go 100%? And I think that's going to be interesting to see how he's able to adjust when he gets back into the NFL.
All right, last point on Jeremy Maclin. He said also in the press conference that when the Eagles came to him with a multi-year deal and the two sides couldn't agree, they decided just to go to a one-year deal instead of him testing the market. What does that really show about him as a team player, the fact that he's willing to take a one-year deal and come back to this team to try to make them go even further in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it shows that he's a humble, honest guy. He's not going to go and look for these big contracts, that could hurt the team in the long run. If he's going to get hurt again, or maybe only has 1 or 2 years left in the tank, he doesn't want to lock the Eagles down to this deal where they have to pay him out. Yeah, great for him. He gets a great payday, but he's a humble, honest guy, and he doesn't want to take that away from the team and from his teammates. And leaving that salary room, the Eagles can do something else to improve themselves after he's gone.
Yeah, and not only being humble, I think that it shows that he's confident and he's not afraid to prove himself to these Eagles and that he's not afraid to get re-signed again.
Yeah, I mean, I think he really wanted to be in Philly. I heard him say a lot of times, like, this is the place I want to be, and that just speaks a lot to the organization. And I think a lot of signings we've seen, re-signings have said this is a great organization, starting with Jeffrey Lurie up top as the owner. So I think that means a lot about the organization.
All right, we're talking about a good organization, a good team player. And speaking of team players, we have another one who unfortunately was let go because of the Maclin signing, as we have the graphic here. Longtime Eagle Jason Avant was released. An Eagle since 2006. You'll see his career stats there. He has 297 receptions, 3,646 yards, and 12 touchdowns in the career. Not really star numbers, but he never really was a star player, but nor did he need to be. He was really kind of that unsung hero kind of guy. Guys, just go down the line and talk about Jason Avant's value both on and off the field.
Well, off the field, he's a great locker room presence, real team player. He was some of the early guys turned to. He's an unspoken team leader. On the field, he was a real quiet weapon. He had only 12 touchdown receptions in his years with the Eagles, but he was always there. He was almost like a silent killer. He didn't make a whole lot of noise in the field, but when they needed him to, he was there to pick up a slack or make that catch when Deshaun Jackson was covered, when the tight ends were covered. So he was really that silent killer for the Eagles on the field.
Yeah, a great pair of hands always gave Nick Foles. He was a sure target, and Nick Foles needed a first down, and you always saw that Jason Avant was there and open. And I think over 400 reception yards last year makes him, he's still going to be in the game next year. Never count out the Chiefs. They're looking for a slot wide receiver. But as he said, off the field, you saw Deshaun Jackson always running his mouth after a bad play, and Jason Avant was one of the first players to calm him down, and he was a professional. He kept the morale of the team and great asset in the locker room.
Yeah, I really am sad to see Avant go. I think he's really underappreciated in that a lot of what he did was blocking. And I think if you look back in that miracle at MetLife Stadium on Deshaun Jackson's punt return, he laid a guy out on that block, and that was a big reason he scored. So a lot of things he did, he didn't always have the ball in his hands, and also off the field, like these guys have said, he was really a great teammate. Great. I'm a fan of him. I hope to see him do well wherever he goes.
Yeah, before we move on to the Eagles actually making moves in free agency, another key aspect where Jason Avant was huge was, of course, the ugly incident last season before training camp with Riley Cooper at the Kenny Chesney concert, But Jason Avant was one of the guys who came out in the media and in the locker room and said, look, I forgive Riley. He's my close friend, and we're going to move on from this as a team. And they did. And Riley Cooper was able to be a key weapon as well as Jason Avant, and they were able to get an NFC East championship. So now let's move on to them trying to expand on that NFC East championship. The Eagles start to make some moves, as you see on the graphic here. They signed safety Malcolm Jenkins. Not really a name that was tossed around, but you'll see his career stats there. 275 tackles, 6 interceptions, and the past 2 years with his previous team, the Saints, he was voted defensive captain. Guys, a lot of mixed reactions I saw on social media about this signing. A lot of people were either really into it or really not. So what do you guys think?
I personally like it. That was one of the big things I thought the Eagles need to go out and do was really shore up their secondary, something they struggled with beginning of the year last year. And that's where they lost a lot of those games, where the big plays over the top, because the pass rush was really good. And when you saw the games where they won, there was a blowout win, blowout victories, even tight games where they won. Now, the pass rush was working, and so was the secondary. When that secondary was working, preventing the quarterback from getting the ball out of his hands, the pass rush was able to take him down, force a throwaway, or a sack. So having someone like him come in who's a major part of the Saints' defense the past few years with those great numbers and a defensive captain, so he's an all-field leader as well, it's going to do nothing but absolutely benefit the Eagles.
Looking through Twitter, I saw a lot of the Eagles fans wanted Bills safety Jarius Byrd, and when you look at Jarius Byrd, the Saints just offered him guaranteed $54 million. So by picking up Malcolm Jenkins, we're not breaking our bank account too much, and he's going to bring consistency to this Eagles defense. You saw, I'd say, 2010 when Quentin Michael left, the Eagles safety position has really been inconsistent, and not only does Jenkins cover well deep, but Billy Davis can use him to, blitz, and he can, he's a playmaker. He's going to make interceptions and the tackles needed to win ball games.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hybrid guy. I think that's what fits this Eagles defense. They switched from a 4-3 to a 3-4. And interesting about Michael Jenkins, he was actually drafted as a cornerback. So that just shows you his versatility. So I think that's going to do good for the Eagles secondary. And, I mean, they haven't had a really solid safety in a while since we lost Brian Dawkins.
That's true. And the Eagles making one more very recent move as they were able to acquire another Saint, Darren Sproles from the New Orleans Saints, who, of course, had the controversy of thinking he was going to be released. Then the Saints said via Twitter, or it was released via Twitter that they were going to try to trade him, and he found that out. He wasn't happy about it, but now he is traded, and he is now a Philadelphia Eagle. So Eagles were able to acquire him for a 5th-round pick. Darren Sproles is a versatile weapon guy. As he can return kicks and punts, he can catch passes out of the backfield, and of course, he can come in and take reps from either Shady or Bryce Brown. So what do you guys think of the signing?
I really like the signing. I think it's a good move by them. Some people might be a little weary of it because it might, it's going to take away reps from Bryce Brown and Sean McCoy. But it's going to be beneficial. It's going to give this guy some rest. And he said he's also a special teams guy. And that's something, the Eagles have been a little weary of too in the past. They've had Deshaun Jackson returning punts and kicks. And that's not something people like to see. Your number one receiver, trying to run the ball back is, there's 11 men running full speed down the field at you. So that was something they were pretty scared of, myself included.
Steve?
It was a great wake-up call. I got the notification this morning when I woke up. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Chip Kelly uses both LaShawn McCoy and Sproles, whether it be like a wishbone formation, throwing them out in the screens, and absolutely throw him on the kick return, as you said, or the punt return. He's a stocky guy, and he's going to look to run over players. And Eagles fans no longer have to hold their breath as Deshaun Jackson's trying not to get killed.
All right. And that is a very, very good point. I think Sproles will be used excellently in kick returns by Chip Kelly and the Eagles special teams. Now we move on to a team that's in its preseason mode, the Philadelphia Phillies, who are currently in spring training. Although, looking at their offense, you wouldn't tell. Currently, as you'll see the graphic, we highlight 3 Philly stars in Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, and Don Brown. All averages below 200 currently in spring training. Really, all around the offense has not been doing that great now. Host Andrew Albert has said on this show before that he doesn't place any value on spring training stats. Is that the case here, or does this slumping offense, or does that worry you guys?
It worries me, honestly. Not so much in the beginning of spring training, but as we get towards, we're down towards the mid of March, and we're getting towards the end of March now. So these last 2 weeks are really where, the players need to really pick it up and start playing in that, in season form. I think the team overall, they're batting around 200, if not less. And that's really worrisome. That was something they struggled with last year was, the offensive power. As Cliff Lee would keep them in games as well as Halladay. But, that's something that they were trying to fix over the offseason, something they didn't fix. So I'm concerned about the offense.
Yeah, I don't think it would be something to worry about if the past 2 years the Phillies had a great offense, but let's face it, they've struggled a little bit. So the only thing positive I take away out of this is the last game you saw they beat the Orioles, and they've been struggling getting men on base and leaving men on base. And you saw there was 3 triples. Dominic Brown had a base-clearing triple. And also Ryan Howard, since 2009, he was averaging 50 home runs a season, and then he started pulling the ball. What you see is during the spring season, he's not pulling the ball anymore. You see he's getting the ball in play, and I think that can get him back on the home run track that he wants to be.
Yeah, I don't put too much stock into spring training numbers, but you have to look back, like Steve was saying, the past years. This isn't 08, 09 anymore. These aren't the World Series years. These Phillies batters are older now. They're in their 30s, and they haven't been producing. And they've been getting hurt. Ryan Howard getting hurt. Chase Utley, finally last year was actually pretty solid, was healthy. But if they stay healthy and then they actually produce, I have to wait and see. I'm not a guy that's going to believe they're going to do it. All
right, you talk about health, and now we'll talk about an issue with Phillies' health and Phillies ace Cole Hamels, who entered camp the first couple days of camp. He came out and said, I'm a little behind. I have bicep tendonitis, but I should be just a couple days off track. Well, then the word got out that he got shut down for a week, and everyone was saying, oh, he's going to be out till May, but then the Phillies staff was saying, no, we think he could be out in April. But however, this past week he threw a bullpen session, and he says he feels good. So how much does the timetable issue frustrate you? Does it worry you a little bit that there really hasn't been a timetable set for your ace to take the mound?
I wouldn't say so much that there's a definite timetable. It's the fact that the timetable keeps changing. He had shoulder surgery in November, which set him back, and he was coming into camp. He said he was about 5 days behind, which I wasn't terribly concerned about. And then he was saying he was having problems in his arms, and they shut him down for an extra week. And he was saying in an interview during that time that he thinks he wasn't going to make the start for a home opener, and that he'll be on the DL possibly to start the year. And that's where he became a little bit concerned. But now he's thrown back in the bullpen and says his arm's fine. So I feel like it's going to be very hit and miss, and something that's definitely going to worry me as the season goes on, unless he becomes more consistent and he's healthy. Because if one of your ace pitchers is, you're going to be hot or going to be cold, that's a big question mark in your rotation. So that's definitely going to be a big question mark for the Phillies.
It really does worry me in the fact that in the bullpen that he only threw 20 pitches, and that's usually something you do. A pitcher does a week before spring training starts, and that would put him about a month behind. So I'm hoping that eventually he's going to feel good, but I don't want him to rush things, because if May is what it takes, I want him to come back 100%.
Tommy?
Yeah, like Mark was saying, the timetable keeps changing. Like at first, when I first saw the report, oh, he may not start at the beginning of the year, I was like, okay, it seems okay. His workout's just a little behind. But then as it came out again, like, oh, there's a setback, then I'm a little worried. And now there's no timetable. I don't know when he's going to get back. I'm a little worried, I would say so.
All right. And now we go to a different kind of worry with the Philadelphia Phillies in the shortstop position, because the past couple games, Jimmy Rollins has not played shortstop for the Philadelphia Phillies. Instead, it's been Freddie Galvis. When asked about Freddie Galvis, Ryan Sandberg went off about his energy, his positivity, and how he's been looking good. When asked about Jimmy Rollins' energy, Ryan Sandberg simply said, "No comment. Ouch." So we know Jimmy Rollins has had his history in the past of not hustling. Of course, there have been a couple instances, people argue there should have been more, where Charlie Manuel would bench Jimmy Rollins. Guys, how much does this frustrate you about, if this is what the benching issue is about Jimmy not hustling?
For me, it's not so much on the field as it is off the field and in the locker room issue. Jimmy Rollins is the leader of this team. He's the vocal leader of the team. He's a very emotional leader as well. He's an emotional player. And that's where these coaches run into the issue, and the managers run into the issue of him not running out. If all these young guys, especially at spring training, they're seeing Jimmy Rollins, who especially for like people our age, these are the kind of kids that are in minor leagues that are at camp. They see Jimmy Rollins, someone they grew up watching play, and someone who's a hero and he's a mainstay in Phillies baseball. If he's not making the effort, why should I make the effort? So it's that kind of deal. That's the kind of issue you're dealing with, and we've seen Charlie Manuel do it before. Last time my memory I can think about right now is he did a pop fly in the infield one time when Phillies were struggling, and he just tossed the bat to the side and did a very, very light jog down the first base line, and Manuel pulled him right there out of the game. So that was the right issue, and I think that's the issue right now. You got to do it, because then Rollins shaped back up.
All right, Steve?
Yeah, like Mark said, Jimmy Rollins is the leader of this team, and there's a lot of new players on this team. And what he has to show the players is that every day is a new day to better yourself and better the chemistry of this team on the offensive, defensive side. So when he's telling players, you don't need to care in spring training, then yeah, absolutely, that's not necessary. And Sandberg had every right to bench him these past 3 games. And what he needs to improve on is showing the players how to improve themselves and eventually get a career like Jimmy Rollins himself has.
Yeah, what I found interesting about this whole thing with Ryan Sandberg and Rollins is that Sandberg has actually never come up to Rollins and say you're benched. He just didn't put him in the lineup part. So there hasn't actually been a confrontation between the two talking about it. So I don't really know what's going on there. And he's saying good things about Freddie Galvis. I like Freddie Galvis too, but he's not Jimmy Rollins. So there's something that has to go on there. They have to talk. And I mean, there has to be some, this is not good for the clubhouse. They got to talk and find out what's going on.
Yeah, Jimmy Rollins hasn't really had a good offseason as far as talking as going into the offseason, really going into spring training. He came out publicly and said he was going to use his no trade clause if a trade was going to come up, not because he wants to stay with this team or the city, because he has records to break. When he came out and said that, I wasn't a big fan of that at all. I mean, obviously you're going to think about that as a player because individual accolades are good, but nevertheless, you really don't want to come out and say, oh, I'm mainly focusing on these accolades. At least say, honestly, lie. I'd be okay with him lying. Just say, and look, I'm here for the team, I'm here to help these young guys. If that's the case, fine, the fans will be okay with it. But the fact that he came out and said he has records to break and now he's getting benched in spring training, not really a good start for Jay Rollins spring training for the 2014 Phils. But we will move on to a team I was hoping to say in brighter times, but unfortunately that's not the case as we move on to Sixers talk. I mean, we all know what the deal is with the Philadelphia 76ers. As we could see the graphic, we have the Sixers logo and we have the altered Sixers logo of #Tankadelphia. The Sixers have lost, that graphic is wrong, 18 straight games. They are coming up kind of close to the NBA record for losing streaks, which is held by the 2010-2011, Cleveland Cavaliers. Guys, even though this is all going according to Sam Hinkie's plan, we all know what it is. How frustrating is this to see?
It's pretty frustrating, not just from a fan's perspective, but also from a player's perspective. You can't go out there every night and just kind of deal with losing. You have to have some fire within you to win, and players have that, but they just don't have all the pieces to do so. I don't think they're going to break that losing streak record of 26 games. I think they'll win somewhere between now and then, but it is concerning to me. You can't just keep going out and losing. It's definitely going to hurt the players.
Yeah, I'm going to make a bold prediction here and say they win 2 games before the end of the season.
Do you think they break the record?
They do not break the record. But the Sixers, if you saw last game, you saw everything that's wrong with the Philadelphia 76ers. And the fact that if they're going to lose, I'd rather them lose a little bit closer, but it's just they're turning the ball over and they can't make any shots. And like you said, it's all part of Hinkie's plan, but I'd rather see a close game than these blowouts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sad to see the Sixers doing this, but we know that this is the plan of them tanking and them getting a top pick in the draft. But to go 0-36 to end the season is actually a real possibility. Their schedule, what it looks like in near future, is against Pacers. They got to play Pacers twice. They got to play the Bulls. They got a hard schedule still. They just play Sacramento. They lost to them. They're like 20 wins. So it's not looking good for them. It's not looking good for them to even win. He's thinking 2. I'm thinking they're not going to win any. So if I can get 1, I'll be praying. So I'm a Sixers fan. I want them to get a top pick, but I hope they win a game before the year ends.
Tommy McIntyre pulling no punches, ladies and gentlemen. And you mentioned they have to play the Pacers twice. Before we go on to our next point, just to note that this week they do play the Pacers, and Andrew Bynum will not be in the lineup. So unfortunately, Philly fans will not get the chance to pack the arena and fill the arena with anti-Andrew Bynum chants again. So sorry about that, Philadelphia.
Are you surprised Bynum isn't in the lineup?
That's another story for another day. Anyway, real quickly, me and Andrew Albert, the day the Sixers made all those moves at the trade deadline, he jokingly said to me, "Hey Tyler, the Sixers have enough cap room to get LeBron and Melo next offseason." Guys, I don't know if LeBron and Melo are making any trips to Philadelphia unless they're an opposing team anytime soon. But could we see a quote-unquote bigger free agent signed by Sam Hinkie to be a leader on this team?
Honestly, I don't think so. They have enough draft picks stocked up. Like I said, they're going to have 2 in the first round, most likely, and 5 in the second round. So I don't think they're going to be signing anyone in the offseason. If they do, it's going to be more from an opening they get from trading players away and trading draft picks away. So, but I definitely going to think it's going to come. Their team's going to come from these new guys coming through the draft. Like their slogan, "Together we build." So it's definitely going to be draft picks that's going to bring this team back together.
I definitely agree with Mark. It's the Sixers are going to try and build off the draft. I think LeBron could be a little charitable and bring his talents to South Philly.
Bring his talents to South Street.
South Street. But Carmelo is definitely out of the picture. He wants to be on a winning team, and maybe LeBron.
Tommy?
Man, I would love to see LeBron in a Sixers uniform, but it's not going to happen.
I think we all
yeah, it's not going to happen. I think the plan is to build through the draft, this upcoming draft, and they're going to sign, I think, some veterans, but no one that's going to be like up to LeBron and Carmelo's level.
No marquee
because they need veterans in the locker room. I mean, this is the youngest team in league history. That's how young this team is. Like, they have Thad Young. He's like the oldest dude in the team is 26. So this is their team. They have to get some veterans in there, mixed with some young guys to teach them how the NBA is, or they're not going to know.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you could have that baptism by fire experience like Michael Carl Williams had, but if the whole team is a baptism by fire experience, that could be a tough couple years for Brett Brown, who, although he specializes in player development, that's a lot for any coach. So now we are moving on to our Fast Five segment here at the end of Sports Talk Philadelphia. Steve Graham, we start with you. Roy Halladay joined Twitter this week. It was funny, he actually posted a selfie of him about to fly a helicopter. Steve, who's your favorite athlete to follow on Twitter?
I'd say on Twitter, my favorite athlete is Eagles offensive lineman Jason Kelsey. He's
very good choice.
Yeah, he's really a funny guy, great sense of humor, and especially after the signing, he's like, I don't need the money, I need enough money to buy me some food. So I like his tweets about going out with the linemen and other players on the team, and he's entertaining.
He's still hungry after Wing Bowl. He
Yeah.
put down a lot of wings. Mark Wilson, we go to you. What position should the Eagles look to fill next in the offseason?
Honestly, I'm still a little wary of that secondary. They have one signing in Jenkins, but if he's the secondary struggled, is one guy going to make that much of a difference? They need, I think, one other person to at least shore that up, make it a little more solid for them.
All right, Tom McIntyre. If Michael Sam's draft stock, of course, being the Mizzou player who, of course, came out and made national headlines, if his draft stock does indeed fall like people are thinking it will, and he falls to Howie Roseman and the Eagles, would you select him and why?
If he's in a later round and they think he's on their board, well, I mean, why not? I mean, the problem I do have with him at the combine, even though I don't take too much stock in the combine, he had like less bench press reps than a punter, so I don't think that's too good. But I mean, if he's on their board and he fits in a later round where they think they can draft him and they like him, I don't see no problem with it.
All right, now we go to Mark Wilson again. Should the Flyers have made a major move at the trade deadline that just passed, or are they good with keeping that young core the way it is? Because they would have had to give up a good amount of the young core to get, say, Ryan Kessler of the Vancouver Canucks.
No, I like that they didn't make a big move and they kept the young guys. Young guys, they're more athletic, they have more stamina, and that's what it comes down to in hockey. Who's going to be able to last the longest as it comes down to the playoffs, and who can go further. So I like the moves of just staying as they are and staying young.
All right, and last question goes to Steve Graham. I believe you mentioned this earlier, but nevertheless, as far as punt returns go for the Eagles this season, would you rather see Darren Sproles back there, or would you rather see Deshaun Jackson back there, hoping for another miracle at the Meadowlands Part 3?
I'd love to see Darren Sproles for most of the punts, but as I said, in like situations like that miracle at the MetLife Stadium, that'd be great to see Deshaun Jackson back there. But yeah, Darren Sproles brings a lot to the special teams. With his speed, he averaged great yards for the Saints, and he's a great punt returner.
Yeah, I agree. He really is a versatile weapon for that team, and he's going to benefit in so many ways. So some people are a little curious about it, but I really do like the move. And nevertheless, that's going to conclude our show here on Sports Talk Philadelphia for this week. You can reach us at lasalle.edu/LaSalleTV to get all your info on us, as well as reach our email address, lasalletv@lasalle.edu. Sports Talk Philadelphia, as Andrew Albert likes to say, is on the web like we should be in this day and age. We have our Twitter handle at Sports Talk Phila. I have my Twitter handle at Tyler_Harper13. We have the Facebook page that I update in Sports Talk Philadelphia, Sports Talk one word, and also on YouTube, Sports Talk Philadelphia, keyword search, Sports Talk again is one word. So that's going to do it for our show today. Andrew Albert will be back here hosting next week. Until then, I'm Tyler Harper for Mark Wilson, Steve Graham, and Tom McIntyre, and we will see you next week.